Hey everyone, and welcome to From Waterloo to the Alamo. I'm your host, Traci Wilson, and today we have Vaike O'Grady. She is a strategic market intelligence consultant for residential real estate. Vaike, I'm so excited to have you here today, and I'm actually very, very excited to pick your brain kind of on the residential real estate market and
Sure.
kind of hear about your expertise and kind of how your career has grown over the years in the pretty large companies that you have worked with.
Mhm.
So first and foremost, I know your career in market research and how housing analysis probably spans some of the most respected names in the industry, like I mentioned earlier. What first drew you to this side of real estate, and how do you stay energized by it?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'll answer the last part of your question first. It's energizing because it's always changing, right?
Right.
Just when you think you've got the market figured out, something throws you a loop and there
Mm-hmm.
you go. So, and I've been in this business long enough that I've been through the Great Recession, which was an eye opener for a lot of people in residential
Mm-hmm.
real estate.
Right.
And this last little bit, the big run up in Austin. I'm never going to get more into that, and then sort of what's happened since the tariffs and all that. There's always something changing that's impacting residential real estate. But
Mm-hmm.
to answer the first part of your question, I fell into real estate like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I studied public relations and writing and thought I was going to be a writer. And my first job was with the Home Builders Association.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so I was a communications person with them and kind of fell into residential from there, right?
Mhm.
That was up in Maryland. Then my career took me into Florida and then into Texas. And now I work in both Texas and Florida.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you've worked with some of the major companies, right? Like I would say, especially in the residential real estate area, like Zonda, Metrostudy, and Hanley Wood.
Mhm.
So, I mean, just to name a few of them. But how have those roles, I guess I would say, shaped your approach into
Mhm.
understanding the housing markets? And how do you think, especially coming back to Austin with this new role with helping unlock MLS and the Austin Board of Realtors, which we'll get into. How is that going to help with those things?
Yeah. So actually, before I got involved with Metrostudy, which became Zonda, I actually worked for master plan community developers. So I
Okay.
was in the thick of it. And even actually before that, I was with builders. So a
Mhm.
long time ago, there was a builder named Ryland Homes
Mhm.
that was based in Maryland, right? So
Right.
that's where I'm from. Ryland became Lennar eventually, was Cal Atlantic and Standard Pacific for a period of time. But in any case, large national home builder.
Mhm.
First started my career, and then I went to work with master plan community developers. And the builder world and the developer world is very, very different. The
Mhm.
builder world is how fast can you get it done? How many sales do we get this week? What are we going to do next week? We're going to sell more houses.
Right.
And where do we go next? And if you're working for a master plan community developer, you have a much longer window of planning.
Mhm.
If it's thousands of homes, for example, which many of them are, you need to be able to put the groundwork in and have it be right from the get-go and then manage it all the way through. So I was fortunate that I spent about 2/3 of my career there before I went to Metrostudy. Now, having said that, Metrostudy and Zonda, that was the best job that I've ever had, because that was really about understanding not just what I'm working on, but what
Mhm.
is everybody else in the market working on.
Right.
And that gives you a really good perspective of what the metrics are that means
Mhm.
for success in residential sales.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, you have a really interesting new role, which is, of course, bringing you back here to Austin. You are working with the Austin Board of Realtors and Unlock MLS. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of what motivated you to, I guess, say
Sure.
yes to work with them?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was in Austin from 2010 to 2021. And I came back to Florida in 21 for family reasons, but my heart is still in Texas. And I try to get there as often as I can, not the least of which because my daughter lives there too.
Yeah, of
So I
course.
get to visit with her. And I was fortunate during my time at Metrostudy to have met a lot of people in the Austin residential
Mhm.
real estate space. So when I came back to Austin to visit in February, I ran into a good friend over at Austin Board of Realtors, and she said, "I'm so glad I ran into you. We've got someone going out on maternity leave. We really need somebody with your expertise. And so that's how I kind of fell into it. It's just maintaining those relationships
Yeah.
In the Austin area. And, again, benefiting from that work I'd done with Metrostudy, which really digs deep into the statistics of the market. So I just started with them. I'll be working with them through October as they need some help with their research and managing the data that they put out, which has really been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been an adjustment for us as agents as well, with the kind of the inner combining of UnlockMLS and Austin Board of Realtors. But
Mhm.
tell us a little bit what's exciting you the most about this opportunity. With you probably have seen Austin transform and grow over the years. But what are you most excited about with this kind of pairing?
Well, now's the time to really dig in, right? I mean,
Hmm.
Austin, when I was in Austin in 2010, we were just coming out of the recession.
Right.
And I was looking at mostly from a new home building perspective, and things were just starting to ramp up. And every year the numbers were getting better and better. And then the pandemic hit, and everybody took a giant pause for, let's call it 60 days. And then the world really got lit on fire. And so we were living in this abnormal construct of home sales and residential market activity for a period
Yeah.
of time. And I left Austin after that. So I had experienced the rise, the fairly steep rise, and then the blow it out rise. And then in the past few years, Austin's had to kind of come to grips with what I would call more of we had a slide. I think we need to acknowledge that the market slid here in
Hmm.
Austin because it had grown so fast, so quickly,
Yeah.
so big,
Not
so
normal.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, not normal. And now we're dealing with a normal real estate market. And a
Hmm.
normal real estate market means you need to pay much closer attention to the data,
Yeah.
right? So that's what's exciting to me is that Austin Board of Realtors covers and Unlocked MLS covers all of the data points you would need to be successful as an agent. And so teasing out what's the takeaway from the
Hmm.
numbers is really exciting to me.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of leading into my next question to you was, as you're a market research advisor, like how is this going to benefit the agent community? And you kind of in and of itself answered it. And I've benefited from it as well. I mean, I know our clients more than ever, their house has been on the market 30 days. They've only gotten X amount of traction. We feel we're priced right. Well, hey, why don't we look at the broader scope? How many homes have sold in the last X amount of days in
Right.
your area, in your neighborhood, in your zip code? And
Yep.
it's really eye opening for the seller, right? When they can see that data of, oh my goodness, in the last 60 days, only 2 homes have sold in our zip code, only
Yeah.
two, right? In a specific price point. So the data, I will say, has been extremely helpful because I think sellers still have unrealistic expectations of what their house should sell for. Now, if a seller bought, in pre 2020 or before everything happened, then they're usually in a pretty good spot. But when people bought during that peak time, it's kind of hard to break the news
Yeah.
to them. But I will say, basically, from as you have been able to really get that data out to us as agents, I feel like it is so impactful because
Sure.
it's helping our sellers understand, right? And helping us not
Yeah.
lose listings and realizing that we are doing everything we can. It's just this is what the
Right.
market is saying.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what I love about Unlock MLS is you can actually go in and manipulate data yourself pretty easily. And
Hmm.
there's a class that we teach every 2 weeks to say, here's how you go in and get your stats that are helpful to you.
Yeah.
So if you need to have that difficult conversation with the seller, you can have that with data in your pocket, right? And it's
Right.
not one thing that I think can be a little overwhelming for agents is there's so much data out there. It's
Yeah.
what's really relevant. What do I really need to know? And how do I make distinctions about what to share and what not to share?
Right.
We kind of help guide you through that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great. And that's great that y'all have classes every 2 weeks to keep people kind of on top of how to use it. It is very user friendly. But, we have agents of all different ages, right? So some are more tech savvy and some aren't. So it's good that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of your short-term goals with your role at Austin Board of Realtors and Unlock MLS?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to be out there, speaking with agents, getting to know agents, making sure they've got the information they need. And, Unlock MLS does a pretty good job of that. I mean, they're in social media and the like, they're where agents are. But I think personally, just kind of talking to agents and hearing straight from them about what's happening in the market and marrying that to the data, right? But you can only tell so much from the numbers. But conversations with agents is something I'm looking forward to doing. And I'm going to be there fairly frequently. So we have a market conversations event coming up in August 5th. And then our housing summit is September 10th. So we've got some great opportunities for people to come. And I'd love to meet people and have conversations with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I saw this, this comment the other day, and it's so relevant to us in the residential real estate market, but it said, you aren't competing with comps like this 90-day comps anymore. You're competing with this week's price drop. And I thought that was a real interesting perspective of it, because you also can, with all the data, right, that you guys put out, you can see how many price drops you've had as well in that neighborhood or whatnot. Or if it's, very specific, if it's on Lake Austin or has a pool or whatnot. So I thought that was actually an interesting comment. And to show that statistic, it is actually very eye-opening. So you guys are doing a great job so far with all the data you guys are putting out there.
Hello, my name is Matthias Braganza, General Sales Manager at Mack Hike Ford Lincoln, your #1 Ford dealer in Central Texas. We are here for all your automotive needs: Ford, Lincoln, pre-owns, all year makes and model. If we don't have it, we'll find it. You won't find anybody that will work as hard as I will to earn your business. Thank you for making us #1 in Austin, Texas.
Hey, I'm Brandon Sparks with Nautilus Lending, based right here in Central Texas. We're a full-service mortgage operation and brokerage, serving Greater Texas as well as Florida and Tennessee. One of the greatest things about our shop is our ability to facilitate creative financing. What that means is that anything legally possible, we can get it funded. You want to find out more? Reach out to us, www.nautiluslending.com. That's www.nautiluslending.com.
Speaking of data, let's talk about this like from a regional perspective. I know you said you work in both Florida and Texas. What similarities are you seeing in both of those markets as residential real estate markets?
Well, I mean, they're both popular places for people to move, right? We know that domestic migration, so from state to state, was really high in both markets during the pandemic or right after the pandemic.
Right.
That is now slowed in both instances. And frankly, that's created some challenges in both markets. So you had a lot of Californians coming to Texas. You had a lot of New Yorkers coming to Florida. Both of those audiences came in with bigger pocketbooks and were able to pay higher prices for the homes that are on the ground than someone who is actually a native or living in Florida or Texas with that level income, right?
Yeah.
And so I saw those similarities happen in both markets where the prices were pushed up by this tremendous swell of people coming in from other states.
Yeah. Well, let's flip it then. What do you think is, I mean, you said challenges already, but what are some other challenges you're seeing besides just that height of everybody wanting to be, in these two states at the time of the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, when I came, so I spent my time in Austin, like I said, when the market was really, really on fire and there were a lot of corporate relocations and things were really growing.
And you were in Austin for like 12 years, right? Like 2009, 2010, right?
Okay. Yep, through 21. So those were the times when Elon Musk came to town and Google built their flagship building and Indeed built their building in the domain. And, it was like all systems go all across Austin with corporate relocations and tech jobs, right? That has since softened. It hasn't in Florida, at least in the Orlando and Tampa markets, which is the markets I'm most familiar with. They were never big tech magnets. markets.
Mm-hmm.
But it started to happen during the pandemic, and that's actually become a bigger part of what they're all about.
Yeah.
Orlando in particular, they have, you always think of Orlando, you think of Disney and Universal and all that stuff, but those are not exactly tech companies, but they certainly do have that element of higher paid jobs,
Mm-hmm.
doing the creative work, right? And so some of that AI stuff, all that stuff is coming to Florida, and it's becoming, there is some growth there economically as well in Orlando and Tampa that is driven by tech-oriented companies. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a similarity that they share with Austin. Austin went like this and then came back down pretty hard. That hasn't happened in Orlando and Tampa. They haven't grown as much, but they haven't declined as much either.
Yeah. Well, Florida in general, I feel like in the pandemic, so many people either bought second homes. I mean, we really love going into 30A a lot, for vacations.
Sure.
And it's crazy to see how it was kind of, I mean, people were there and it was always busy, but then during the pandemic and after, like, oh my gosh, people discovered it a little bit more. They discovered they were buying houses. And then, it was actually a really smart play for a lot of people who bought these second homes, and then you rent them out pretty much 9 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And they saw this whole new source of income, but then of course also a way to get away and have air and breath and be out on a beach. And I think Florida really probably has a little more stability than right now, I would say, the Austin market. But I think it's just because Austin did shoot so high, so quick, and it had to stabilize sometime.
Right. And we're seeing some signs of that. I mean, the
Mhm.
latest data is kind of pointing toward sort of the gap. The first quarter was really rough in Austin,
Mhm.
but the gap between sort of 2024 sales and 2025 sales has narrowed,
Yeah.
and it's continuing to narrow. So
Yeah.
unless we get some sort of weird economic hit,
Mhm.
which, the tariffs were, right? I
Right.
mean, that tariff announcement threw everybody for a loop for a little while. We're still dealing with some of that, but now it's become sort of business as usual to know, okay, what's the tariff next week, right?
Right.
Yeah. So people the market isn't as thrown by it as they were first quarter.
Right.
So if things even out a little bit, I think we're on a path to a sort of a gentle recovery in Austin. I mean, the shifts year over year are single digit in percentage. It's not like it was, I think, a couple of years ago.
Right. Well, and I mean, cross our fingers, right? What don't they mean at the end of July to talk about
Right.
interest rates? So, we're kind of holding our breath for that. So I kind of feel like you might see, at least from my perspective, and you can tell me because you're the expert here, but I feel like I hope that there's buyers out there, right? I always think buyers are
Right.
just sitting in the rafters waiting for that next price drop. But I think if interest rates, come down a little bit, I think you might see a little bit more buyer morale. So fingers crossed, right? But we thought that the last time they met that they were going to lower them.
I know.
And they
and
did
my sense is that we're probably not going to get a cut at the end of July.
Yeah.
I hate to say that.
Well,
but
it's
the
good.
reality is we will see prices continue to soften a bit.
Yeah.
So they haven't been increasing like they were, and they've started to soften just a hair. So I think it's more likely for the prices to continue to soften.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rates will be a little bit further out. Interest rate cuts will be a little further out.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm just a glass half full kind of girl. I just want to keep
well,
hoping.
Listen, I hope you're right. I hope they do cap them sooner.
Well,
I'm just not sensing that. Unless Powell gets fired.
Yeah. Right.
If Powell gets fired, I mean, that'll throw everything into a little bit of a weird place again.
It would, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially on this, like clearly I'm like, man, I hope interest rates come down. But why don't you explain why data is so important in helping? I mean, with all these changing markets like we just described, I mean, data plays a huge role, right? And basically, I think you need to stress the importance of how does it keep agents stay grounded and informed?
Yeah. Well, and I know, I mean, agents probably got into the business because they like working with people and they like the energy that comes from when a sale happens and the opportunity to get out there in the market and visit with people. But I think that it's equally important for agents today to spend a little time in front of the computer and just get the data before you go out to your next listing. appointment or before you're talking to a buyer, know where you are in the market, because your seller's counting on you for that, right? If you're going to continue to be a trusted advisor to them, you need to come armed with a couple of data points. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No,
but
it did for sure. I mean, you're basically saying knowledge is power, right? Like the more you know, the better off you're going to be. Well, I mean, you've clearly, I always consider consultants, right, as, you know, advisors and or almost mentors, right? Because that's what you're there. You're there to guide people on what they need to do and, you know, kind of what the next step is. So what would your advice be to agents that are either looking to grow their market research data and putting it into strategically planning, and or people who are just getting in the field, which is a terrible time to get in the field right now, but hopefully, you know, they have good contacts. But what would your advice be to them?
Well, I mean, take the class.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a member of the Austin Board of Realtors or UnlockMLS, it's available to you.
Yeah.
We are spoon feeding you info that will make you more successful. I mean, there's more classes than just the MLS stats class, but spend an hour and learn how to get in and get the data yourself. And then just get they say habits create the person. Get in the habit of checking it on a regular basis. You know, maybe every Monday morning, just set yourself up to do a little check on the data so that you can go in armed when you're going into your next listing presentation. The other thing that I want to make sure we cover while we're together, Traci, is the new home space is an interesting space right now too. And I know more agents are working as buyer's agents now because they have had to. The inventory wasn't there to do the resale.
Right.
Well, in the next few months, builders have built up some inventory, and they are very eager to move through that inventory. So if you're working with a buyer, it's something to think about. Look at new construction.
Because they're going to be pretty aggressive, it sounds like.
Yeah, they always are in the summer, because typically a builder builds up their inventory during the spring, and they know that most of the moves are going to happen before school starts. Right. And then if they have inventory on their books, they want to get it off their books before the end of the year, when especially the publicly held builders, before they have to report. So they're going to be pretty aggressive with incentives for agents. And when you are looking at competition for your listings, you need to look at the new home competition as well as the resale. Yeah,
that's going to be a big ticket right there. And a lot of builders are able to offer financing, you know, and that's
exactly right. They're buying down rates to make it work. And, you know, in the pandemic, they were able to get profit margins that allowed them to do that without hurting too much.
Yeah.
That time is coming to a bit of an end as they've decreased prices. They maybe don't have as much room to provide incentives, but it's still there for now.
Right.
And especially if you're in the markets that are sort of further out, there's more new home construction in, you know, Williamson County, Hayes County,
right,
than there is in the city.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting fact. I mean, that's important to keep your eye on it. And you said that y'all have the market stats. How often do y'all do those classes? Is it every 2 weeks still?
It's every 2 weeks on Tuesdays, and we update the stats on our website. You can actually pull stuff every week if you want to, but what the class that will show you how to do that is every 2 weeks.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so lastly, what do you think is a common misconception about Austin real estate that people have?
Yeah. Well, Austin is becoming more affordable than it was. You know, there was a whole, Austin's also always been one of the most expensive markets in Texas, but that's a reason for that. The lifestyle in Austin is really unparalleled. I mean, people want to live there. I miss it all the time. As soon as I land, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy to be in Austin again.
Yeah.
Because it's just a great place to live. And that buoys home prices.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can't expect home prices in Austin to come crashing down when there's still so much interest in moving to Austin.
Yeah.
But it, you know, I think it got a bad rap for a little while, and you can still see some of that media stuff out there that says Austin's a tough, you know, the worst market or whatever, one of the worst markets in the country. I don't believe that. I think Austin had a as we talked about, a meteoric rise, came crashing down back to a little bit closer to reality, and now we're more normal. We're more aligned with many of the other metros than we were.
Yeah.
And so I don't want people thinking that Austin's any worse off than other places.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would argue that it's better in a lot of ways, even though this, some of the other towns get some love. People don't want to move there like they want to move to Austin.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because, my friends in Dallas, I mean, their market's still pretty good, but it's because, they didn't shoot up like we did, it wasn't. And Dallas is just so different. You have it's a grid. I always tell people Dallas is a grid. You've got your downtown, then you have your Richardson, then you have Plano and Frisco. I mean, everything is like this. So it's super easy to live 30 minutes from downtown, and you could live in Plano or Frisco and get a huge house for X, for 600,000.
Yeah.
So it's just a very different market there. But I do have people who tell me all the time, we don't want to live in Dallas. We want to live in Austin. So it is an interesting.
I had the opportunity to move to Texas. I said, I'm only going if I'm going to Austin.
Yeah.
It's a different vibe. I mean, Dallas is a lot of concrete, a lot of sprawl.
Mm-hmm.
And one could argue that Austin is sprawled a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's still got a very small city feel to it.
Yeah.
Everybody's so friendly. It's just an easy place to get around. There's so much to do. The restaurants, oh my gosh, I get so mad in Florida. Everything's a chain.
Yeah.
So
I know Austin is really, they're adding new restaurants all the time. I know people always will ask, where do I go eat when they come here? Because I'm born and raised from
so
Austin.
many choices.
And I'm like, honestly, I can't even tell you, because there's probably 5 new restaurants that I've never even tried. Or they'll ask my opinion on something, and I'm like, I've never eaten there. But yeah, it is. It's a great city, and I think that I like where we're at, right? I do like that we've stabilized price-wise. So it is good to hear your perspective on that. But also your perspective on everything else. It is kind of cool to see your 2 perspectives on Florida and Texas, because those were really the markets people were feeding into over the last, 5 years.
Sure.
But thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And you know what? I'm going to probably take one of your classes. I need to take it with ABoR, even though I've used it. And it's, like I said, it's really user friendly. I think that, again, knowledge is power. So the more you know, the better you'll be. So,
well, and if you make UnlockMLS your source, you don't need to go looking all over the internet for stuff.
Yeah.
I know agents like to post on social, and UnlockMLS just sits it out there for you. So
yeah, it makes it really, really, really easy. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us today. This was fun doing a virtual podcast. I've never done it before.
So yes.
Great. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thanks for listening, everyone.